After an intense period of refinement and taking on board loads of feedback, we are so excited to be launching this new era and introducing the Jasper Blueprint to you. The central idea that I really want to impress on you today as I introduce you to what I've created is focused on framing the intent behind the Jasper Blueprint. Because there's no answers here. As you listen to this podcast today, my intention is not to give you the answer. And when we think about the Jasper Blueprint, I want to make it really clear that the Jasper Blueprint does not seek to give the answer. Instead, what it is a proven process to help you find your answers. And you'll notice in that distinction, there's a few aspects of me, who I am, how I think, and what I value that come out in the way I've framed that. So the first is around this idea that I am not trying to give the answer in a way that is about saying there is one right answer. Equally, when you flip into the aspect of how I've just described what the intention is, which is to give you a proven process to find your answers, you'll notice that not only is there emphasis on your answers, because they're going to be unique to you and your business, I've also said answers plural, because the Jasper Blueprint is not something you do once. It's not about getting a certain kind of articulation or outcome in place once. It is a methodology that I have created to actually help you in an ongoing way with your decision making. And so those aspects are really important to me, because if you're anything like me, you are probably sick of having these one-size-fits-all, off-the-shelf type solutions being pushed onto you or forced onto you. The Jasper Blueprint and what I'm going to be introducing to you over this season of the podcast is not cookie cutter. It is not about telling you what to do or what to think. And it's certainly not about forcing your business to fit into my methodology or my particular formula. The reality is that when I look at sort of the background or how this came about and where my focus and passion lie, there are 333 million small and medium-sized businesses around the world. And in my opinion, they are the linchpin on which we actually create healthy societies. But the high costs and the competitive uncertainty that we're all operating in and that have increased massively in the last few years, facing those within the small and medium-sized business area is driving record numbers of leaders to shut their doors, as the toll of those recent years has reached a breaking point for business leaders around the world. The Jasper Blueprint has been created for those exact leaders to help transform the way that they run their businesses. It is tailored to both honour the role that those small and medium-sized businesses can play in changing the world, while also presenting really pragmatic approaches that work within the realities and the constraints of running a business of that size. So for leaders who feel like their business has become all risk and no reward, the Jasper Blueprint is the step-by-step process that can break that cycle for you. The reality that I see when I look at the leaders that I have the privilege of working with from multiple different countries is that business leaders around the world are exhausted. And if they are honest, They're overwhelmed by the sheer volume and scope of the decisions that they need to make. One of the other pieces that is adding insult to injury in that regard for leaders is that they need to make these decisions within a rapidly changing operating environment. And what that means is that it's actually really hard to keep up with the speed of change and what's required of you as a leader to stay relevant. And so when you combine the volume and scope of decisions you're having to make, the rapidly changing environment, and then put that together with these competing demands for your time and attention, but no filters in place for you to actually simplify your decision making, the truth is that leaders end up feeling like they're drowning. And I'm not sure if you have felt that, if you are currently feeling that, or if it's sort of something that you're just aware of at the edges, but that isn't really strong for you yet. But regardless of where you sit, I'm pretty sure that if you are an established business leader, you will understand what I'm talking about when I speak about things like decision fatigue and those aspects of wanting to get to a place where you can actually streamline some of those decisions, where you can get back to operating as a decisive leader in the way that you were used to operating previously, and that may not be feeling as easy anymore. So if you're in that place, you're not alone. We've all been there, and many, many people are experiencing that at the moment. So the thing that has really been created out of me working with business leaders in that small and medium size space for more than 2 decades now is that the Jasper Blueprint is a collection of customized decision-making tools. So the methodology itself that you're going to become familiar with is something that provides this step-by-step process to draw out clarity on the fundamentals that will allow you to actually then develop those filters that are required if you want to streamline decision-making, and particularly if you want to streamline effective decision-making. That allows you to test for alignment when you're weighing up different options. So within that context that we've just spoken about, within all the decisions you're needing to make, within the changing environment, within the aspects of trying to stay relevant and up to date with that speed of change, you have to have decision-making filters. And what you will learn is that part of why you may have been frustrated so far, even if you're reading all the books, doing all the courses, paying all the consultants, doing programs, and really actively seeking help and guidance to learn, part of why you may be frustrated and not getting the results you want is that very rarely are people being taught or given a process to develop their own filters, those customized decision-making tools that I'm talking about. Because as I mentioned, we are being forced to accept off-the-shelf solutions, these one-size-fits-all approaches that don't take into account us as individual leaders, our individual businesses, or what it is we're trying to achieve in the world. And so the effectiveness of our decision-making, so not just being quick and decisive, but being effective in that, and ultimately being able to make aligned decisions, can only come about if our decision-making tools are based on customized filters, on filtering out and prioritizing decisions based on what is important to you and your organization. And that is not something that the market is offering you. So let me give you a little bit of the origin story, the background for the Jasper Blueprint. For me, after nearly 25 years of working with business leaders around the world to bring to life, to demonstrate, if you like, this idea that business can be a force for good in the world, I reached a point of real genuine and deep frustration with the lack of traction that these approaches were getting with the business community. And the reality is that the solutions that we have been offering business leaders are too complicated, they're too expensive, and they're too theoretical for them to genuinely engage and embed them in their organisations. And you can probably associate with or understand that when you think about different ideas that have been presented to you over the years of how you could run your business differently or things you could consider that have fallen into that category of you may have on one level wanted to engage with them, but they just felt too expensive, too time consuming, and too theoretical, not connected to the realities of running a business. So the reality is that those solutions and current approaches that are out there in the market, and remember, I am including myself in the responsibility of that, having been in the space for nearly 25 years, that those current approaches, what they rely on is business leaders being willing to engage because it's the right thing to do. They don't get practical. They don't acknowledge, much less address, the very real constraints that business leaders are facing. And so as I reflected on nearly 25 years of work in that space of working to bring business into being able to be that powerful agent for change in the world, as I looked at that, and then I also looked at the other barrier, which I saw really consistently as a pattern that was getting in the way of us achieving traction. That other barrier was that business leaders have a subconscious belief about the purpose of business. And that belief is actually limiting their ability to make money. Now, it's interesting because when we go into this in more detail in future episodes and unpack it a little bit, you'll feel the tension between the fact that this belief about the purpose of business is set up in a way where it's presented as if when you believe this, you will make more money and you will run a really good business. And yet the opposite is actually true. And I am going to demonstrate that to you as we have these conversations. So the Jasper Blueprint shows leaders how to actually merge money and meaning in a way that will strengthen the financial stability of the business and also bring more of that meaning and purpose through running your business in a way that you can be proud of. It's a bringing back together, if you like, of things that for decades now have been treated as not at all compatible. The other aspect that I wanted to talk to you about today in terms of introducing the Jasper Blueprint is that it brings together two of my passions, leadership and business. So I have spent the last few years really wrestling with what I have learnt over the last two decades to create the Jasper Blueprint. My desire to stop being too purist about things, in that way I described of the challenge of the current approaches not getting traction with business leaders, has really played out in me making sure that the Jasper Blueprint meets business leaders like you where you are and can provide practical, actionable tools that do three things. They sharpen your strategy, they strengthen your financial stability, and they streamline your decision making. So if you come back to some of the pieces that I mentioned at the beginning, which were those common challenges, the difficult aspects that business leaders in the small and medium-sized space are facing, all of those are addressed through developing your Jasper Blueprint. So I'm going to tell you those three areas again. Sharpen your strategy, strengthen your financial stability, and streamline your decision making. You may be wondering, as I introduce the Jasper Blueprint to you. Why it is called the Jasper Blueprint. What on earth does that mean? Well, in building out the methodology and the tools for the Jasper Blueprint, two ideas kept showing up. The idea of the touchstone and the idea of a blueprint. For 15 years now, I have been speaking to business leaders about the need to have a touchstone to come back to use as a sense check, if you like, for testing alignment. I introduced Jasper into the mix as a nod to the way that Jasper was historically used as that touchstone to test for the purity of gold. So within the methodology, when you think about this aspect of needing a touchstone, if we're talking about wanting to be aligned, if we're talking about our decisions being aligned or there being integrity in our businesses and the behavior and culture of our business, none of that can happen unless we have some kind of touchstone to test for the alignment, for the purity of that. And so Jasper, in the name, the Jasper Blueprint, is the reference to that touchstone. It's saying this is a tool that you can use to actually test for alignment. When we then flip over to the idea of the blueprint, I've had decades of experience training and building the capacity of leaders, and I know what a struggle it is to actually implement and truly embed these changes into your business model. So that understanding inspired me to want to make sure that what I created was practical and logical, and it was like a blueprint so that you could follow those steps and achieve the results you wanted. That it was your map or guide, if you like, that pulled apart and drew your attention to important features. These two ideas are at the heart of where the name was born, the Jasper Blueprint. And my hope in sharing this with you and starting to have more people, more business leaders go through the programs and listen to the podcast and learn about using the Jasper Blueprint in their business, my desire is that the aspect of Jasper, so Jasper's ability to have multiple different colours, and that component of your Jasper Blueprint and it being customized to you and your business is really important to me, because I want each leader, each business to step more fully into that fullness of who they are and bringing their unique brilliance into the world. I don't want each of us to look the same. I don't want each business to be making the same decisions and to look exactly the same as the next person who might be engaging with the Jasper Blueprint. Your Jasper Blueprint is going to look different and is going to help you make aligned decisions. We could both be faced with the same decision and land at a different answer. Yours being aligned for you, mine being aligned for me. This isn't off the shelf, okay? So I really want you to let that settle in and to think about the Jasper Blueprint from that perspective. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown on some of the things we're going to cover in the first season of the Jasper Blueprint podcast. So we are going to unpack who the Jasper Blueprint is for, what it is, where and how you will use it, and also give you examples of businesses developing their own Jasper Blueprint. Just like the blueprint itself is that step-by-step process that is practical and meets you where you are and allows you to shape and draw out clarity for yourself as a leader and for your business, the same goes with the podcast. I want to make sure it really clearly explains, provides an opportunity to answer any questions that you have and give you a richer understanding of how you can use this methodology in your own business. Even if all you do is watch the podcast, watch the YouTube videos and read some of the posts on the website, I want you to be able to start to implement this and run your business differently. Now, I know you have a full life, and so I want to respect your time. But as we wrap up, I want to remind you that I'm not here to make you believe what I believe or care about what I care about. My work and what I've created with the Jasper Blueprint doesn't seek to give you the answer. It seeks to give you a proven process to find your answers. As the Japanese poet Matsu Basho said, "Seek not to follow in the footsteps of the wise, rather seek what they sought." When you think of that quote, don't follow others' footsteps mindlessly, including mine. Instead, I want you to be thinking about how do you discern what the essence is of what you seek. Find clarity within yourself and then lead from there. The Jasper Blueprint can help you do that. You need a Jasper Blueprint if you want to make strategic decisions on where to focus and what to ignore. You equally need a Jasper Blueprint if you want to avoid wasting time and money on outside experts that you're hoping can fix your business. And this is a big one. We'll go into this in more detail over time. But the Jasper Blueprint is going to save you a lot of money and a lot of time, because you will have a level of clarity that means any opportunity that comes to you or any particular advisor, consultant, program that you might be considering, you are now going to be entering into that from a place of clarity. The foundations will be in place to help you discern what is connected and useful and will help you get where you're going, and what is a waste of time and money and not for you. So you are going to be able to make those decisions much more effectively once you have a Jasper Blueprint. And then the last piece is that if you want to be a decisive and discerning leader, then you need a Jasper Blueprint. So if you want to be able to make big decisions quickly and with confidence that they are in alignment with what matters most to you, then you need a Jasper Blueprint. When you develop your Jasper Blueprint, you will realize that business is not a zero-sum game. Someone else doesn't have to lose for you to win. Your choices aren't binary. Money and meaning are not mutually exclusive. And in fact, what I will show you is that merging money and meaning is actually the competitive advantage that your business has been missing.